Right, well, it's been a while since I've done like a garage tour on here, so that's what I'm planning to do. Start with this place. I've changed quite a bit. Some of the cars are still the same, but I've moved quite a lot around. I now have 5 properties. I don't have 50 cars, but I'll explain more about that later on. So, in here, I've tried to keep my sort of racing style cars to one side, I guess. Starting with this side, these three are not really meant to be racing cars on here, but I think they've got certain features that make them quite a lot like that. If you look at the sort of bumpers on this one and the spoiler, especially this one here, and this one because it's got a race wing on it and the stripes and everything, I thought they belonged in here with the others. Um, and on this side we have the Jester and the Massacre race car, which were planned to be race cars on this game. This Banshee, which is a conversion that's now available at Benny's, which I think is really nice, and this will be something I will talk about in another video at a later point, because it is a really good car, that. And then at this side, I've sort of tried to do a elegance and, you know, force, I guess. So I've got my regular Shafter V12, which I do quite like this car. And I liked it so much, I thought I'd buy one of these too. Got an armoured one, tried to make it look a bit more intimidating. Matte black, red interior, black everything pretty much. um, Same sort of story with this baller over here, which is also armoured. And these two can withstand some damage to windows before they actually break, which is quite handy. Especially, you know, the number of times you'll find yourself driving at high speed down a road and someone might try and shoot you as you're driving past. Most of the time, any other car that would kill you. If you're driving one of those two right there, then you should be okay. And this thing here, the Huntley, which I've got to say is a nice SUV. I think it is actually the fastest one overall in this game. In terms of what these cars are all based on, I'm not entirely sure about some of them. I think this is based on something of a combination between a TVR and something called a Melling Hellcat. This one's based on the Mercedes SL65 Black Series. This one I think is based on a Lamborghini Veneno, I think that's how you pronounce it. This one's some sort of a Cura NSX concept type thing. Some sort of Honda hybrid, I'm not really sure. Not entirely sure about this one either, but I think it's a combination of some Ferrari, not entirely sure which one, and an Aston Martin, judging by the back and the badge. This one is definitely based on a Dodge Viper, although the front of it, especially when you customise it this way, bears more of a resemblance to the Mazda RX-7. These two, I think, are based on Mercedes C-Class sedan, saloon type things. They have a couple of features from other cars, but there's a lot of an argument over what exactly these are supposed to be. This obviously is based on a Range Rover, and this one here is based on a car that was never actually put into production. I think it's a Bentley concept SUV that was never actually made. So, you know, I don't really know what to drive out of here. I think it's got to be this thing, but I'm tempted to the shaft about. I've got to go with this. It's just too pleased with this. I'm like a little kid again. Right. So this car is actually meant to be the fastest in a straight line on the game, and it does come in handy in certain races. What's worth bearing in mind though is that when you modify this, I mean the Banshee is usually a sports car. When you modify it, it actually becomes classified as a supercar, so do bear that in mind. But it has got the highest top speed of any car in this game now, as tested by a couple of people on YouTube, and I wouldn't say it's the best in every super race, but it certainly does have its uses, and I plan to do a video at a later point comparing the T20, the Osiris and the Banshee 900R on the same track, just to display where they can all be useful. This, on races with straights such as the commute and dipping in, this definitely does have its uses. So I've shifted things around in my garage. The garage that I've just been in was the garage in my new apartment at Eclipse Towers, which has the custom interior. This is Weasel Plaza, which used to have all my super and sports cars in, but I've now changed this around. So what we've got here is everything else that didn't fit in the other garages, basically, and it does look like a bit of a mishmash. I've tried to organise it a bit, but it's about as good as it can get. So this Stallion here, which is based on a Chevrolet Chevelle SS. This thing, the W6x6, is based on the six-wheel Mercedes G-Wagon, which is an absolute beast of a car, and it had features like buttons overhead in the interior that allowed you to inflate the tyres and deflate the tyres for certain terrains. The Sand King, which I think is based on a Dodge Hemi pickup truck, but I'm not sure which one because it has features of different models. I'm not entirely sure what the Guardian is, if I'm honest, but I like it. I don't really know what it is. I suspect it may, with it being a Vapid, which is the equivalent of Ford in this game, I suspect it may be based on a Mighty F350, but I'm not entirely sure. The Insurgent, I've got no idea what it's supposed to resemble. The only thing I could compare this to is something called the Hummer Marauder. It's very similar to it. I think if it's based on anything in reality, it's that. This Fiore GT I think is based on a Maserati Gran Turismo, but it has features of other cars. The Felon is based on an XFR, I think, Jaguar XFR. This is based on the original Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing, so called because of its doors. It's not the only car in this game to have these doors. The Osiris also has Gullwing doors, but it's a nice feature. I don't know exactly what this is based on, this Singer GT, but I think it's based on a combination of the Shelby Daytona Cobra Coupe at the back, and at the front I think it's based more on the Ferrari 250 GTO, but I'm sure there'll be a bit of a dispute about that one. And this one, I've been thinking about this one the past couple of days. I haven't had this for very long. This is the Zirconium Stratum, which to most people on this game won't really mean that much, but especially down to the sort of the shape of the front lights and the general shape of the car, I suspect this is based on a Skyline estate from the 90s, I think. And part of the reason I believe that as well is there aren't many cars based on Nissans on this game, and that's why this is the only car I think with Zirconium as the make in this game. And the Stratum makes me think of the stratosphere, so sort of layers of the atmosphere, and the Skyline. I feel like it's maybe a bit of a play on that. So that's this one. This is definitely the random garage, if you like. So I'm going to take this beast to the next one, just for a change. I haven't driven this one for a while. So the next garage I will go to is my muscle car garage, probably one of my favourites to be quite honest. There hasn't been much that's changed in there. I have altered some of the colours, and I think out of all my garages, it might not have the fastest cars in it, but overall I think it tends to be people's favourite out of the garages I have. So, and it's been my favourite for a long time. So I will get there, and we'll get into all of the nitty-gritty details in a minute. And yes, I will be equally as sad when we get in there as I have been in the other garages. I think I know some details about cars which are just maybe not worth knowing, but I know them, so I might as well include them, you know. Right, so yeah, basically most people walk in here and they don't really know what to say, because the colours are all over the place and the cars are a little bit radical, but you know, muscle cars, impractical but stylish, that's what defines them. So we started this end with the the Vapid Dominator, and this is the only car out of all my garages, as sad as it is, this is the only car I've actually kept since day one. This is the first car I stole on the game, followed by the Gauntlet, and it's the exact same car. It's not like I've lost the Dominator and then gotten another Dominator. This is the one that I stole. So it's a bit weird that I've still got that. Unfortunately, my Sabre did end up getting lost, and I had to get that back. But this is based on the Ford Mustang, and I love the sort of features on this car. I like the fact they've based it on a combination of the modern Mustang and the Mustang Mach-1. I like the spoiler, I like the louvers, and I'm quite pleased with the way I've done this. I haven't changed this for over a year actually. Every other car's sort of changed every now and then, but that one's stayed the same. The Nightshade, I think, is based on a Camaro Z28, um, and it's got a couple of features of other cars, and it looks a bit more boss than the original Camaro did. But I quite like it. It's not the fastest muscle car on here, but it's very stable and it's very nice to drive. Um, this one, the Dukes, I have to say is probably one of my personal favourites. It's based on the Dodge Charger, which is one of my favourite cars in reality. And yeah, again, I'm pleased with the way I've done this. I've not seen anyone else's quite like this. I've seen some really nice work on the Dukes, but although I'm not usually keen on carbon bonnets, I thought I'd try and make mine different, so that's what I've done there. This is probably what people consider the weirdest car in this garage, this one right here, the Buccaneer, which I modified at Benny's, modified it into a lowrider. And the colour on this one's quite weird, because what I've done is I've got Cabernet Red with an ultra blue pearlescent, and I've gone for the weird lightning wheels with the blue lines on them and everything. I then have the Voodoo over here. Now the Voodoo is a bit of a shadow of its former self, unfortunately. It's not as fast as it used to be on the older games. The Voodoo used to be one of my favourite cars. I still like it, it's still got a place in my memory, but I've got it here. I don't really drive it very much. I do like it, I won't be getting rid of it, but yeah, I'm a little disappointed it's not what it used to be, but it's nice that we've got the clean version of it now, so that's good. I'm not entirely sure what it's based on. I think, well, I'm not really sure about these two at all. I think this one, I think, is based on the Pontiac Tempest Le Mans GTO. This one, I'm not really sure, if I'm honest. An Oldsmobile Ford Thunderbird, not really sure at all, but it probably some sort of Chevrolet, judging by the name of the car, but I'm not really sure. This one, I think it's based partly on an original Mustang, I think, at the front, but I'm not sure about the back. That'll be from another car. But it takes some influence from a Chevrolet again. I do quite like that car. That was something that was added quite discreetly by Rockstar, and no one really knew about it until word got spread around, and it was like a New Year's surprise sort of thing. Sabre has always been one of my favourites, and I think people reckon this is my best looking car of all of the ones I've got. I loved it on all the old games. It's always been fast, it's always been stylish, and it's always been a fairly dependable car overall, so yeah, nice one there. The Mamba was bloody expensive, I have to say, but it was based on the Shelby Cobra. I had to have it. You'll notice it's quite a lot smaller than a lot of the other cars that I've got. I think the Sabre Turbo is based on an Oldsmobile Cutlass, but I'm not sure. This one here, the Coquette Blackfin, and the Coquette, these are both based on Corvettes but different ones. This is the Corvette C2, otherwise known as the Stingray Corvette, and this is the Corvette C1. Both nice, but actually in different classes. This one over here is a sports classic, whilst this one's a muscle. And the sound of this car is amazing, it really is. Nothing else sounds quite like it on the game. So I will take, I'm going to take this little beast for a run. It's a while since I've driven it again, so next one I think is my Stilt apartment, which is the other new apartment I bought, and that's got a couple of weird cars in it, as well as my other supercars that were not in the first garage I went into, and I can't remember what else is in there. I think I've got my bikes in there as well. So yeah, I've done a lot of sort of organising. I spent a while last night moving everything around, and I'm not really sure where everything is, so I'm just getting used to it. And I will come back to the point I made earlier about I do have 5 properties, but I don't have, well, I have one car in one of them, and you may already be able to guess why that is, and you might know why, but yeah, I'll explain more about that in a minute. But let's get to the interesting part first. So yeah, I quite like this little apartment I've got here. It took me ages to decide which Stilt house to buy, but I really do like this one. So yeah, this is a mix of all the weird and wonderful stuff, I guess. Like I say, all my bikes are in here. I've got the Halloween cars and my supercars. So in here I have the Lurcher and the Frankenstein, and I have no idea what they're based on. This is like a different adaptation of the Buccaneer, which I showed you earlier. So yeah, the weird thing about this is in the back. I've tinted the windows. It's gonna be hard to see, but you might just be able to barely see it there. You see that little zombie's face. You the number of times I've scared people by opening the back on this thing and just letting everyone see the corpse. Yeah, it's quite amusing. It was worth spending the 600 and whatever thousand just for that. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. Moving on. The Frankenstein is an adaptation of the Roosevelt in this game, which was available as the Valentine's Massacre sort of bonus thing. Um, it's a weird car. It's actually wider at the back than it is at the front, so it's an odd one to handle. And also, for anyone who's not aware, you might know that there are some cars you can walk on top of, like the Cheetah and this Turismo over here. Well, it is possible to do it with this, but it's really awkward. You have to sort of stand just here, and an easy character sort of walking this way, and then he sort of walks up the front wheel arch, which is a bit odd, but there we go. Yeah, I quite like these two. They're good fun. They're not practical. They're not useful in races at all. But if you're nuts like I am, then it was the right decision to spend 500-600k on something that you're not really going to use very much, and it's just there as an ornament, you know? Because that's what we car freaks do. Anyway, yeah, I've got my Akuma, my Batty, and my Hakuchu. Nearly forgot the name of it then. All really quick bikes, useful for different purposes. I think this is based on a Ducati. I think this one is based on a Ducati as well, and I'm not sure what this one's based on at all. Someone said it was some sort of BMW bike or Suzuki or something, one of the more powerful ones, but I don't know my bikes particularly well. I just know the makes and roughly what each of them are like. So the Akuma's really good on the tighter sections. The Batty's the best overall fastest bike, I would say, and the Hakuchu is ridiculous in straight lines. If you want to have an endless wheelie on a bike, this is the one you need. Then the Sanchez is obviously the beast for using off-road, I guess. You know, I think it's based on sort of KTM off-road dirt bike, but again, I'm not really clued up on that, so I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about because I don't. The Entity is actually based on probably my overall favourite car in reality, which is the Koenigsegg. And it was the first car I bought off of Legendary Motorsport. It was the first car I bought actually on the game altogether. And no, I did not obtain 800 and something thousand through legitimate means before anyone else. The Turismo, I believe, is based on, I think, a Ferrari, but I'm not sure. I think a combination of some sort of Ferrari at the front. Again, I'm not really sure what Ferrari because there's so many that are quite similar. And the back, I believe, is the McLaren F1. So nice car there. A lot of the supercars are based on sort of hybrids between real cars in reality to avoid sort of copyright infringements and things. But what you actually end up with as a happy accident is a new, interesting looking car, which is quite a nice thing to have on GTA. Similar story over here with the Osiris. The front is based on and it's a stupid name this, right? But the Ferrari LaFerrari. So that's what the front's based on. The back is based on, and this is also a bit of a daft name, but for different reasons, the Pagani Huayra, which is spelt Huyra. And I'm not going to try and pronounce it properly because I can't, but that car. So yeah, really nice car, well balanced overall, and was the overall fastest supercar until this thing over here, this little devil came along, the T20, which is based on the McLaren P1, solely the McLaren P1 as far as I know. I can't think of any other influences from other cars, but the dynamic spoiler on this game is the only car that has that lifting spoiler. I'm surprised the adder on this game didn't have it, because that actually does. The Bugatti that it's based on in reality does have a dynamic spoiler, but for some reason they decided not to do that on the game. But yeah, these two are absolute beasts, and as I said earlier, there will be a comparison video between the Osiris, the T20, and the Banshee 900R in terms of what benefits they all have in races. And it's not to prove which is the best, because I think they're all equally good in their own ways, but certainly for different tracks or for your own style of driving on here, it hopefully will be a useful video as a comparison. And when I do it, don't base it all on the times. It's more about what you're seeing, how the car sort of responds to changes and things. So yeah, in the way of garages, that is pretty much it. But what I will do is I will race down to my little point I was making earlier, um, just as a closing sort of thing, I guess. I mean, it's not a massively important part of this video, but I'll just go and show you what I was talking about anyway. So, as many of you will be aware, people quite often don't play the Pacific Standard job as it was intended to be played. They use the Armoured Kuruma to make the final section of the job a lot easier. And it definitely makes it easier. Protection in a bulletproof car away from that amount of police attention, and you can keep 1.2 million plus as your overall finishing take. So in here I have, as a lot of you will have probably guessed, an Armoured Kuruma. So what we do, we get to this point, obviously you come down, I think it's this alleyway over here. You'll be running down here, so yeah, if you imagine you're doing the heist, everyone will be running towards me at this point, and then you'll take this turn this way, and you'll run through here, you'll go through this bit, and you'll go down this way, and then there'll be the bikes at the end, there'll be those crates with the armour in, everyone will get on the bike, and then they'll get straight off the bike, and then they'll all run to the back of here, and they'll jump over this wall, and then they'll just be really sneaky, they'll go into their apartment through there. So yeah, it's certainly a useful trick, and for those who want to build some money up, it's quite a nice thing to do. But at the moment I'm sitting on a fairly stable 800 grand. I wouldn't say I'm rich on here at the moment. I mean, after buying my yacht and buying all of this stuff I got recently, it's probably no surprise. But yeah, here we are, a lonely Kuruma in a very quiet, understated, modest sort of garage here, and yeah, it's probably feels a bit left out, but it just didn't really have its place in any of the other garages, and plus I wanted it in here because I want to exploit the game and get money. So yeah, there we go. That's my garages. I may do some sort of showcase of my outfits at some point, or well, I could just do it now. Really, I'm not going to talk about it so much in a separate video. There's not really much point. I have this freaky thing here, which I've called Mr. Lucifer. It's like a weird mask and glasses and a hat, and there's a glitch you can do which involves running towards a telescope in your apartment, as daft as that sounds, which allows you to wear masks, hats and glasses at the same time when you usually wouldn't be able to. And if you want to know how to do that, I may put that in another video. This one which I've called Classy Demon, which is just this weird face with all the skin ripping off, and it's a bit odd because it's sort of glitching a bit where it's sort of poking through the hat, and then I've put the glasses that sort of coming out of the face. I don't really know where to begin to explain that. Even though I've put that together myself, I don't really know what it is, I'll be honest. This one, I have these, I don't know why, I'm obsessed with this sort of style. I have this green combat suit and then a black one which has the parachute bag on it in a slightly different top, and then a grey one as well. I just quite like these, I don't know why. I quite like the element of mystery, I guess. You can't really see my face properly. I've got this one which was a bit of a glitch from a heist where I got kicked out of a heist, but it left me with the duffel bag in free mode, so I went and saved the outfit at my apartment. What else have I got? A couple of casual outfits. This one speaks for itself, really. You know, when I'm done being weird, that's what I usually turn to. This one which I made last night when I was bored, just this weird utility vest thing. Same with this one, but I've been a bit weird and I put some glasses with a mask. And then this, which I don't know, I'm not really sure about this one, to be honest. I put it together and I think it looks a bit weird. I thought I'd do it because I'd try and make my character look a bit more casual like everyone else's, because when I'm walking around and he's always wearing, you know, combat vests and weird masks and all that sort of stuff all the time, I just thought, yeah, for a change I'll just lighten up a bit, you know, but it just doesn't work for me. I can't really I can't really lie, it's not my sort of thing. So yeah, that is a showcase of how sad I am about my cars and how weird I am about my outfits. I'm sure that none of that was a surprise to anyone. Everyone knows I'm a bit odd, but now you're all fully aware, and you could just recall it like it was some sort of quiz. So there we go, that's it for this one. I will soon enough I will sort the video for the comparison between the Osiris, the T20 and the Banshee, and like I say, it should be beneficial. I've actually quite a bit to find out for myself. Actually, I've not really experimented with them as a comparison much yet, but I'm thinking I'm going to go on two different tracks, one that's a bit more heavy with straights, and what you should see, my little hypothesis on this, I guess you could say, my prediction is the Banshee should make short work of the Osiris and the T20 on the tracks that are more heavily reliant on straights, whilst the T20 and the Osiris will still be better balanced on the others. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.